it's going to be very exciting, and people are going to be shocked, and people are going to be agitated by this movie in a way that I think they're probably not expecting. And that, to me, makes a great sequel. The whole last movie was a study in trauma. What happens to somebody 40 years later? How does that trauma carry? Here you have an entire town of people that has been traumatized, and we're going to meet them in the new movie. Anthony Michael Hall has just come in, and he has the toughest role because he's the one that really charges the whole movie with its mission, which is to gather the people and to go after Michael Myers when he hears what happened to Laurie. Well, that little boy that Laurie walked down the street with, he has grown up, and he's the real sort of centrifuge in the middle of the movie, and he's fantastic, very powerful. One of the things that is deeply explored in this movie is, was it really Laurie Strode? Or was it something else? We think it's Laurie Strode because she was the point of his attachment. She was the fulcrum of his obsession, and everything around her became targets. What this movie explores is that may not be true. That there may be something deeper in him than just an obsession with me. And that's an interesting place to go. It's a maelstrom. It's a cyclone of violence and anger and fear and mob mentality, and it's intense. It's really intense. To all of the people that love these movies, happy Halloween.
We're making these movies for the fans. People have a real visceral response to the original Halloween. So I think that bringing back these characters is really smart, because for all those fans, they're they're old friends. When I read the script and I say, David, if I give him notes, thoughts, ideas about my specific character, he's the greatest at that. He cares so much about our characters, and that we're happy and that we're excited about what we're doing and that it tracks. He's as much of a part of our cast as we all are. I mean, obviously it should go without saying, but on top of acting in this role, he's also doing stunts and all that stuff too. I mean, he's playing the most iconic role of the franchise, really. There would be nothing without Michael Myers.
Halloween Kills is a great name because Michael Myers eviscerates everybody. It's a level of violence from him that I don't think has ever been seen. And on top of that, it shows the butterfly effect of not just the action of Michael, but the reaction of the people of Haddonfield. And that is making for a very crazy story. You see how many people are actually affected by this legend, and they've been impressed with the story of Michael Myers for 40 years, and now that he's back, they're like, well, there's one of him and however many of us, so let's just go do it. It starts at about 100% and it goes to about 500%. It's so incredibly intense and engaging, and it's a avalanche once it gets going, and it's pretty epic. I think that she steps up and kind of becomes a woman in this one. You watch her kind of take matters into her own hands and say enough is enough. I'm going to do something here. And she steps up and goes after him. She's brave and courageous, and this one real badass.
So Cameron Elam is the son of Lonnie Elam, who fans would remember probably from the first movie. So jump 40 years later, there's kind of this crew of people that have been affected by Michael, and that includes Lindsay, who Laurie babysat in the first one, Lonnie, my dad, Tommy Doyle, and Laurie. They kind of have this support group dealing with the trauma from the first encounter with Michael Myers. But so that's kind of, in the beginning of the movie, that's where you find this group, and then they find out that Michael has indeed returned, so that kind of sparks the mob which goes after him. The mob takes over for better and for worse. I mean, I think that it's cool because a bunch of normal, average people are rising up, you know, normal people in extraordinary circumstances, and they're all banding together to bring down this one evil.
When I think of myself as a little girl, 8 years old, shooting Halloween, I think of just, being on the set and not really getting what we were making. I was having fun, honestly. It was another job I was doing. I remember Jamie Lee being really, really sweet with me and very maternal for such a young girl. I didn't know what I was doing until I saw it. Then I was like, what on God's green earth? If you had asked me years ago, I probably wouldn't have had a good answer of, what is it about Michael Myers that makes him so terrifying? But now as an adult, I can tell you. I mean, in shooting these scenes here as an adult, I would look back over my shoulder and to see that figure and that mask and the body language and the way he moves is absolutely terrifying. And, put that in there with the music and the lighting and the directing, and it's really terrifying. When I think of Jamie, in the original one, she had this sort of like calm strength about her, a quiet strength about her. And, even with, the screaming, him chasing her, she just sort of took charge anyway. So I really can see why people all these years later just love seeing her in this role and being this strong female character. I love it.
It's sort of like a really wonderful opportunity that he gave me, this sort of hero role, that Tommy's this, 50-something-year-old guy, 51, who now in his middle age is sort of rallying the local community. But it's also rooted in the tragedy of what happened. So he did a great thing along with Danny and Scott Teams of sort of connecting, the original film to the current time frame. I think the pace and the pathos and everything that Halloween had was great. I think this really has more, honestly. I think it has a lot more going on. Again, because he's sort of reinvigorated these characters from the original film and reintroduced them. It's also interesting too because it's confined to sort of one night, it's Halloween nights. But there's a lot going on. There's a lot that I think the fans are gonna love. I don't wanna give anything away, but it's gonna be great.
Laurie Strode, in my mind, is always the centerpiece of the Halloween franchise. When we decided to reboot the series, we wanted to make sure that we had something that played to every generation, of every age. And so being able to play through the legacy of Laurie and Karen and Allison and get their differing philosophies and their different ages and cultures that they live in and inhabit was important, just to get new voices in there. In Halloween Kills, the community is all responding to fear and terror in their own way. Some people run and hide. Some people step up to the challenge, and Allison is one of the driving forces behind the group that's activated to go and hunt Michael. As a huge fan of John Carpenter's movie, it's just such a great opportunity to personally go back into the Myers house, to recreate the set from 1978, and to expand on the mythology that John and Deborah Hill established. So not only are we revisiting legacy characters from his film, but we're also stepping into a literal recreation of Myers' home and seeing sides of the house that we didn't see before. Jamie Lee is not only the centerpiece character of the franchise as Laurie Strode, but she's also the muse of all of the writers. So as we brainstorm ideas, we talk to her, we keep her very closely involved. I love to have send her early drafts of the script and test scenes with her and see if this is something that she responds to, or where we can go, or do you think you could do this, or should we do that? It's kind of amazing. And we come up with ideas. She'll send me ideas of Laurie's style or a moment, or I'll send her a YouTube clip of some other film as a reference point. And then we talk through it and we think, we want to find new ways to define the character, but also keep a lot of the same signatures.
When David talked to me about what his ideas were for the sequel, he was really interested in really kind of taking a deep dive into the original Halloween and sort of like pulling out characters from the town of Haddonfield and being able to sort of enlarge the scope of kind of who we follow in the story. So characters like Sheriff Brackett, Tommy Doyle, suddenly we just start to kind of dive into these characters and sort of try to connect the dots of like, well, what's happened to them since the last time we saw them? Judy Greer, I've always been a fan of and watched her from afar, and I was really just thrilled when David approached her and she said yes for the film. And Andy's incredible. I feel like Andy really captures a lot of the essence that Jamie brought to the series back in the original Halloween. I think that there's, there's like a charm and a toughness there that is fun to watch. The has already hit the fan when you start the second one. And so it allows things to be much more charged, and you're in this visceral sort of moment where the adrenaline's already going, and it's just about sustaining that and just having it be this onslaught, you know.
David Gordon Green and Danny McBride were always adamant that they wanted to see the people of Haddonfield respond to Michael Myers being out in their town, roaming the streets. I remember David and Danny really wanted to capture the collective sentiment of people seeing him with their own eyes and being faced with the fact that Laurie Strode was actually telling the truth. What you will see in the film is that there is a fervor building amongst the townspeople of Haddonfield, and that fervor just boils up in a super hostile way. Everything is really, really heightened in Halloween Kills. The scares, the pace, from the very, very beginning when you see the Strode home that's on fire, it's a thrill ride from that point on. We first see Laurie Strode escaping from her burning house and riding in the back of a pickup truck with her daughter and granddaughter. And in true Laurie Strode fashion, when she finds out Michael is alive, she is determined to track him down and kill him.
It's a huge change in tone and intensity. It's much more intense, and the tone is definitely ratcheted up. But I think saying that, you know, David's first crack at this was already a ramped up tone and intensity from where we had been with the Halloween franchise. So to say that we're even ratcheting up more is amazing, and to see it happening before my own eyes is even cooler. To be sitting anywhere in front of a Myers house is great, with David Gordon Green behind the camera, Jamie Lee Curtis as Laurie Strode, and Michael Myers coming after her. I mean, it's always a fulfillment, but with this crew, this team, this cast, it's just been cranked up 10 levels.
Hey, it's Lisa here with more on horror. Now, Robert Englund was not the first choice to play Freddy Krueger. Wes Craven reportedly planned to have a stuntman play Freddy Krueger, but wisely opted to go with an accomplished actor for the role instead. His first choice was David Warner. However, Warner had to pass on the project, which opened the door for the truly excellent Robert Englund. Now, click here below to subscribe and also tap the bell to receive our videos in your feed.